So my little genius suggested I do this video for you. I'm Stephanie Harrell, by the way. How training, physical training, has a mental component. Yeah? Okay. Where this comes from for me, I've talked about it already a little bit and I feel passionate about it. I've been reading The Hard Parts by Oksana Masters, really inspired by her. She has no family structure from when she was little because she was in an orphanage in the Ukraine and had physical injuries perpetuated by the Chernobyl effects when she was born. I just, in my deepest soul, find such admiration for people that don't have secure attachments from when they're babies and are capable of forming those and creating a life for themselves as adults. I have such respect, admiration, and desire to learn from people who have those histories. I started reading her book maybe just this week. I'm about a third of the way through. I'm excited to get to the rest. She talks about her own experience as a child in an orphanage in the Ukraine, and a very touching anecdote about discovering or being given a picture of who would become her mother, an adoptive parent in the United States, looking into the eyes of this woman that this was her mother. That anecdote's so powerful to me because it speaks to the power of human connection, especially through the eyes. I don't know what this has to do with training, but it's such an inspiration to me. I think maybe because of my own experience meeting Elie Wiesel, who was a Holocaust survivor, and sitting with him, and for an extended amount of time, his making eye contact with me and literally not moving from that spot and just listening to me and talking to me and making total eye contact and thinking about what a gift it is to share moments with people through really looking at them. If I extrapolate that idea or those anecdotes into thinking about training, I think it has to do with just pure energy. And that is not just physical. It's like accessing part of ourselves that gives us this sensation to go. And that is very mental, and it is part of thinking about physical achievement. I really don't think it's possible to achieve things physically without this mental component. And you know who really brings this home is Chris Hemsworth. The series is called Limitless. I have not watched the whole thing, and I'll tell you why, because I am watching one episode at a time, and I've only watched one. But I'm gonna watch the whole thing. I have to watch them slowly because I have to integrate this information because it's a lot to think about. I don't know, how can it not be a lot? When people achieve great things, they don't do it because they just immediately access great things. They do it by a lot of hard work and a lot of self-reflection and a lot of pushing and a lot of thinking and a lot of training. And that training is not just physical. I mean, to achieve anything physical, you have to do loads and loads of repetition and small movements and big movements, and they all have to build on each other. And the longer you do it, the better for you and the more results you're gonna get, etc., etc. But there's also this mental component, because without the mental discipline, without the mental training, there's kind of a stop to the physical. I think that the relationship works both ways too, right? I mean, I'm in the gym this morning and I was just like, blah. And a friend of mine came up with a workout and we did it together. And at the end, I just felt tremendous, like way better. So it can go both ways. But in order to really, I think, achieve physical goals or even mental goals, we have to have training that's mental. The mental preparation can't be underestimated. And if you think about athletes that talk about like getting into a flow state, and dancers do this too, where they have practiced and practiced and practiced something so much that when they finally access it at the performance level, and this isn't always, it's almost rarely, but accessing that point at which you're just in a complete state of flow and focus. And I want to hone in on focus. I think focus is actually easier to achieve or get access to than the complete flow. And this is what I mean. I was in Italy in the Dolomite Mountains and did some bouldering and climbing. And I have a depth perception issue with my vision. And one of the things, if any of you guys have ever done any kind of rock climbing, is to be able to step, especially on the way down, you have to be able to see variations in stone and like see, okay, I can step there, I can step here. And it was a little tricky to do at first with a depth perception issue, but I realized that if I just focused on color, that I could tell where a step was. And the whole experience took me completely out of my mental existence, so to speak, and this is my thinking self that I do all of the time, and just put me into my body in this state of focus that lasted quite a long time, at least several hours, where I was focusing on color and moving my body, and the achievement afterwards was such a high, so full of energy and so full. I mean, it was amazing. And I actually think that it feels kind of similar to really making eye contact with somebody, if that makes any sense. It's like this beautiful connection to deep parts of self that's very visceral, very physical, and also mental. I go back to Chris Hemsworth and my one episode where he is thinking about fear. I'll watch more of it and tell you more later. He's thinking about fear, and the exercise, I won't ruin it for you, you should go watch it. But one of the exercises he's doing, his heart rate goes up, his breathing changes, and that actually being measured on him by a psychologist increases the fear response instead of decreases the fear response. There are several practices, physical practices that he does where different techniques are employed in order to lower his heart rate while going through the same physical experience. A couple of things. One, he tells himself that he's got this, that he can do it. A second is regulating his breathing. And a third, which I offer, I don't think they talk about this at all in the video, but I think vision is really, really important. And the reason why I think that is when your heart rate goes up and fear is instigated, basically your vision starts to get very, very, very pointed. And if you can soften your vision a little bit, then what will happen naturally is your body will start to calm itself. So he doesn't mention the vision, I don't think, in that video, but he does think about the practices that will lower his heart rate so he can conduct a particular physical activity more successfully without stress. And I think that's key. It's like without stress. We can actually talk about this so much more. I think the takeaway I'd like you to have from this video, one is how we can access energy that helps propel us face new and perhaps strange obstacles in our lives, or challenging obstacles in our lives. And the energy that I'm referring to comes from different sources, and I've referenced to really deep, intimate eye contact with people, and also this extreme focus that comes from paying attention to things while we're exerting ourselves physically. And the second thing would be the concept that when we're training ourselves to do anything, we can learn better when we think about what training means, both in a mental or psychological way, but also physical. Thanks.